Parents beware. Violent video games are here to get your children. Hi, I'm Nick, and this is Required Reading on Retro Games with Nick. Welcome back to our second and last episode where we are reading through the premiere issue of Next Generation magazine. I double-checked, the cover date was actually January 1995. The reason for my intro is that we left it off last time at the article, or the conversation, I guess, called The Violence Tapes. So let's just dive right in. After the media's feeding frenzy of 1994, what is the future for violence and interactive entertainment? Forget the senators, forget the press releases. Let's cut to the chase. Here in one virtual room are four of the developers who will shape the future of this controversial genre. Violent video games are not necessarily a genre, but, you know. And so we have Tom Zito, TZ, a president of Digital Picture, who made the famous Night Trap video game. Gilbert Austin, GA, from writer, designer, and president of Maelstrom, who produced Harvester, which, I gotta be honest, I'm not familiar with. Let me quickly Google it. Harvester video game. Point-and-click adventure game. Interesting. Maybe we're checking it out. The game was straight up banned in Germany, and has been compared to the works of filmmaker David Lynch, including Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks. So that's enough to make me interested in it, I have to be honest. Then we have Jay Wilbur, JW, a business manager at ID Software, who of course made Doom. And Leif Marwede, LM, a project manager at Incredible Technology, who made Bloodstorm, another game that I am not familiar with. It's a fighting game. It is, they're trying to out Mortal Kombat, where you can sort of sever limbs, it looks like, but kind of looks like a shitty game, to be perfectly honest. Alright. So, let's start the conversation. NG. Each of you have achieved considerable attention with games that have, in different ways, pushed the envelope of violent content in video games. How much of this attention is due purely to the game's violence and the interest this generates? TZ. Night Trap was probably more successful than it should have been given how long we made it, 1987, and how basic the level of game playing really is. It became a kind of lightning rod. It had been on sale for more than a full year before Senator Joseph Lieberman began his attack, and sterling the sales of the product accelerated tremendously during the period when it was almost impossible to turn the TV at night and not see a 10-second clip from Night Trap. A couple of asides to expand on some things. Night Trap, published by Digital Pictures. He says they made it in 87, but it was released for Sega CD and 3DO in 92, so I don't know what that means. No, okay, so they filmed it in 87. They tried to edit in game programming for something that was a console vision game console. And then Tom Zito purchased the film footage and completed the game, releasing it on the Sega CD, where it was a launch title for the North American launch of the Sega CD. The first release of a Silicon Valley 1991 startup, Digital Pictures must have been very amazed at the controversy generated by what is, after all, a very simple game. Released on Sega CD in late 1992, Night Trap sold out across the country a year later, to the tune of 50,000 units, when Senator Joseph Lieberman pinpointed it as contributing to the unacceptable level of violence in our society. Sega also sold out, swiftly removing copies from the stores until an advisory rating was slapped on the box. Senator Joseph Lieberman, a Democrat from Connecticut. We're here today to talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas. Not the movie, but unfortunately the violent video games. Declared Senator Joseph Lieberman started the congressional intervention ball rolling on December 1st, 1993 at a Senate press conference. Outraged by Night Trap and Mortal Kombat, he stated that, "I really wish that we could ban them constitutionally," but settled instead for a system of ratings. Rumor has it the victorious senator was last seen cleaning up the freeway noise-reducing barrier industry. Nice job, Joe. Yeah, I think, you know what, it is, so Jon Stewart's impression of Joseph Lieberman from, the early aughts, has him basically being droopy, so that's what I always have in mind, thinking of Joe Lieberman. And so the way that the interview goes is that they ask the same question to each of them, I assume, that they had on them on 4 separate things. I don't know that they'll actually talk to each other. But so next up we have Jay Wilbur's answer. GW. Doom was successful because all of the pieces of the puzzle were in place, and the violence is an important part of this puzzle. LM, the one from Bloodstorm. The violence and blood in Bloodstorm is a great attention grabber. The color red is a big flag, like stoplights and stop signs. And of course, you do want something visually big to happen when something strategic changes on screen. Finally, Gilbert Austin, GA. Sure, it will be an element in the success of Harvester. Publicity is key to the success of any product. If it's not a good game, then no amount of hype will help it. But due to the nature of the game, although it wasn't conceived for this purpose, it's a happy coincidence for the marketing department that there's been all this debate in the media about violence at this time. A little aside here, the first rated game, the idea of stirring controversy to sell more product is hardly new. Dracula on Commodore 64, a game called from CRL, I don't understand what that means, released in Europe in 1987, holds the dubious honor of being the first game to come with a cinema-style 15 certificate, supposedly only player of 15 years or older should play the game. Dracula was closely followed by Wolfman, which came branded with an even harsher 18 certificate. The ratings were self-imposed partially because of the game's primitive, gory graphics, but largely as a marketing exercise to mask what was essentially a remarkably tedious graphic adventure. Marketing, plus ça change, which means the more it changes, the more it stays the same. Second question, NG. What led you to create this type of game? TZ. The origin of Night Trap was that I had been negotiating with New Line Cinema to do an interactive version of Nightmare on Elm Street. We knew we wanted to do some sort of teenage slasher horror movie kind of game that would clearly appeal to the demographic we were after with an interactive TV system that we were developing. But at the last minute, the deal fell apart, so Night Trap was born. JW. I'd make games we want to play. It's exciting to be in the Doom environment. GA. I had free reign to do what I wanted, so I chose something original. Ask myself what hasn't been done very well before, and the answer is horror. There's a side thing on Doom, but we're gonna skip it. It's fine. We know what Doom is. Doom is fantastic. If you've not ever played Doom for some reason, go play Doom. NG. So how is the controlled use of surprise, horror, and suspense useful in creating an immersive and engaging game environment? TZ. In the most basic sense, if I'm in a house and I can go anywhere and that has at any time, then I have to have something to motivate me to move around the house. Little kids love it when their parents go out because they can look in their parents' drawers. It's a natural curiosity. Now as a storyteller, I have to provide a motive for game players to do a similar thing. And one of the classic movie techniques of motivating people to care about characters is to present a very real threat to the characters. So we created an environment in which you had to go in every room, because if you don't catch these bad guys, they might hurt somebody. LM. In Bloodstorm, the violence is part of the game strategy. You can cut off arms and heads and then keep on fighting, so sometimes you do want to deliberately aim for, say, someone's weapon arm or their legs. Your opponent then has to change his or her approach as their game abilities change. A game designer wants to hit the player in every way he can and embarrass their senses when they do something good. And in fighting games, it would seem that lots of blood is the way to go about doing this. Well said on Bloodstorm, out now in the arcade. Coming to a home console near you and soon. No, those will be cancelled. Bloodstorm from Incredible Technologies is the single most bloody game in the arcades. There is a legitimate-ish justification for the unstoppable violence, however, and that is that lopping off people's limbs is all part of the strategy. You got it. Players can continue fighting without weapons, arms, and even legs. Nice. GW. Of course, surprise and shock is important. In Doom, when you walk into a fully lit room and you see a rocket launcher right in front of you, you desire it. You grab it easily and you think, great! But then the doors slam shut, the lights go out, and creatures flood you from all sides. Now that turns to the knob on the adrenaline dial up a notch. And so it's just that perceived danger that makes Doom such a fun game to play. GA. The game is a very interactive experience, if it's done correctly, and that puts certain limitations on designers. Playing a horror game is a whole different experience from watching a horror movie. A movie director can orchestrate all sorts of images and sequences to startle the viewer because it's linear. It's like a roller coaster. You strap the viewer in and take him from point A to point Z, showing them exactly what you want them to see along the way. In a game, you can't manipulate a player in the same way. Hence, you surrender some control over the dynamics of the situation, so you have to try other devices. So if you can't really scare someone in a horror game, then what you can do is disturb them. And that's a different kind of fear. By presenting them certain images that horrify, presenting erratic situations which are uncomfortable or disturbing. NG. Did you set out to scare the player? GW. Sure. LM. Never. We set out to excite the player. GA. No, I don't think you can scare someone on a PC. I want to horrify the player into a state of unease as opposed to simply making him jump in a movie theater. NG. So Gilbert, can a player avoid this feeling of unease as a reward of skillful play? GA. No, because this atmosphere of horror is a cumulative effect of everything in the game. NG. Could you have achieved such a compelling game environment without the violent images? TZ. I don't know the answer to that. Could Oliver Stone have made Natural Born Killers less violent? Sure, he could have, but would it have worked? I don't know. So we're comparing Night Trap to an Oliver Stone movie. Okay. GW. No, because then there would be an essential part of Doom's makeup missing. We set out to make a perfect game, and if this perfect game involved you hopping over flowers in an effort to give a daisy to a girl at the other end, then fine. If, however, it involves you picking up a shotgun, sticking in some bad guy's mouth, and blowing his brains out of the back of the head, then so be it. The Doom guy really doesn't want to be giving this interview and doesn't give half a fuck. It's fascinating. LM. Oh yeah, from the start, that was part of the plan. If you're just selling a game to the American market, then you need lots of blood. Fine, but if you want to sell a game internationally, to countries like Germany or Japan, then these guys don't want blood. So Bloodstorm comes with dip switches to turn all the blood off, and so of course, it has to perform in both modes. I mean, I know this makes American kids look bad, but we're pretty much the only country that likes all this blood and gore in our games. GA. No, not at all. Harvester would fall to pieces without these elements. The whole concept requires horror and violence, and the game would not exist without it. Fictional horror fascinates because, like all entertainment, there's a level of voyeurism. It enables you to live a terrible situation without having to deal with the consequences afterward. It enables you to take a walk on the wild side. Harvester, little sidebar. David Lynch meets John Carpenter in Harvester, an intense psychological thriller that uses scenes of graphic violence and mind-twisting subconscious undertones to keep players constantly off balance. More than just a hack and slash, Harvester's open-ended style forces players to come to terms with their own morality and feelings towards violence. Allegedly. Definitely not for the squeamish. NG. In the development phase, did you consider anything to be too far? GZ. As part of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, we acknowledged there was a level of blood and violence that was going too far. By the same token, we felt that if we completely eliminated it, the player who goes through all the build-up would feel totally cheated. Little sidebar here about that blood syringe controversy. It was this image that became the focus of the Night Trap uproar. A woman on the business end of a syringe drill arrangement. Horrific, over the line, sexist? You be the judge. Night Trap's creator, Tom Zito. We don't actually want to show vampires actually plunging their fangs into people's necks and see blood going everywhere. We We thought that would be going over the top, even though it's the stuff you see in any 2-bit vampire movie. So we came up with this ridiculous device, staying with the drill, because we didn't want to use guns. And so here's the type of violence that, number 1, is relatively mild, and number 2 is totally non-replicable. It's not a device that kids are going to find while rummaging through the garage and then bring inside the home to use on their little sister. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Continuing the interview, LM. Look at it this way. In Bloodstorm, you can crawl around with no legs dragging your intestines behind you. So no, there's nothing we didn't put in. But there's an awful lot of black comedy in there. It's like the Monty Python Black Knight scene. It features animated characters and cartoon violence. It's definitely not real. GA. No, there wasn't anything as shielded away from laughs. Harvester runs the gamut of disgusting human behavior, and there are no sacred cows that are considered untouchable. I've got everything from religion to children getting abducted and murdered. But I wanted to do a real horror game, not just another haunted house. And to disturb a player in these jaded times, I think you really have to delve into some dark material. This is why there haven't been, in my opinion, many good horror games. It's because big companies like Sierra and EA are run by corporate boards and guys in suits, and try and get something truly fringe past these people is virtually impossible. They're forever thinking, what are people going to think? And what if we get bad publicity? So they tone it down, and the baby ends up being thrown out with the bathwater. JW. We have stuff here that we consider too far. Medical photographs of dismembered bodies, for example. But let me tell you, we were able to take those photographs and work them into the game and make them an equally important part of the game than it would have contributed and we would have used them. NG. So, Jay, in the future, ID wouldn't draw the line at using any image on a moral standpoint, but look at it purely in terms of what it can add to gameplay. JW. It's likely, yes. NG. Will the new ratings affect how you produce games? Sidebar on the rating system. 2 rival rating systems. Currently, there are 2 separate publisher associations rating games under 2 separate systems. The IDSA, Interactive Digital Software Association, which includes EA, Sega, Nintendo, Sony, Atari, and Philips, representing the cartridge manufacturers, and the SPA, Software Publishers Association, including over 1,100 developers, publishers, and distributors of business, educational, and consumer software that regulates the computer-oriented products. Ken Wash, Executive Director of the SPA, explains the reason for a breakaway alternative system. The IDSA would give the established and powerful video game companies the ability to control access and retail channels. Members of Congress never understood that or chose to ignore the smaller computer game-oriented publishers' argument that we could not be grouped with the video game industry. And the Software Publishers Association system. The main difference between the SPA rating system and the IDSA scheme is that the SPA's independent board of judges makes no decision as to what products are suitable for what ages of game player. Instead, each box displays details of the game's content, and then lets the purchaser make a more informed decision buying for himself or herself. The IDSA is what I'm pretty sure IDSA Gaming eventually turned into the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association. You know, the one that used to organize E3 until E3 died. And they're the ones that are responsible for the ESRB. Oh, which you can see the ratings on the left, right? Early childhood, kids to adults, teen, mature, adults only. Alright. Let's keep going with the interview. So we just ask, will the new ratings affect how you produce games? GW. We make the games we want to play and then let the ratings fall where they will. GA. If I wanted to dabble with horror again, I wouldn't compromise the design for the sake of a rating. No. LM. No way. NG. Just to set the record straight, do you believe that exposure to violence in the form of movies, comic books, and video games leads to a higher propensity for violence in the watcher-player? TZ. I'm not a psychologist, but I believe that if you're brought up in a stable environment with lots of love, then it doesn't make a whole lot of difference what you get exposed to. If not, I think lots of things potentially could take the place of whatever it is you're looking to your parents for and become a kind of influencing factor in your life. but it's preposterous to claim that because a kid plays a violent video game, he's going to turn into a violent person. GW. Playing video games is a great release of violence, and this is the belief that is echoed back to me by countless experts in the field. I would ask the people who claim that violence is caused by video games to explain the Crusades, one of the most violent periods in history, and yet these people did not have video games. So what made them do it? Their entertainment was the Bible. ... Boy. JW with the hot take here. LM. There are a lot worse things than kids are exposed to, like cops and the TV news. I think kids are barraged by a lot more real violence than any pretend violence they might see in an arcade. Besides, I think video games are good for a lot of kids. It's good for reaction times, it trains your mind to think faster, and they are great training for confrontations, such as, say, a big basketball game in real life. It gives that spirit of competition. GA. It's complete bullshit. I just want to ask these guys to look at all the violence you see in a heyday, and yet how many of them have Nintendo decks? How many watch the A-Team on TV? And yet they are happy to show all this real-life violence on the TV news because they justify it by saying that it's real, therefore it's significant. But I think they're significant also, and should be free for exploration. Sorry, ideas are significant also, and should be free for exploration. NG. How about the idea that what you're shocked by in real life is a function of what you've been exposed to? For example, a nurse who works all day in an emergency room is less likely to be shocked by the sight of blood in a car wreck than an ordinary person. So a player who has seen someone's head ripped off 100 times on Mortal Kombat is not going to be as shocked by it on the 101st time as it was the first time. Maybe this desensitization in some ways transfers to real life also. TZ. That's bullshit. I've seen a newspaper reporter, I've seen decapitated people. I've been a newspaper reporter, I've seen decapitated people, and I guarantee you that even if I'd played Mortal Kombat all my life, it still would have shocked me. JW. Get real. Come on, what kind of idiot would think that? Get a life. LM. Kids understand what a video game is, and parents often don't give kids enough credit for this. GA. Growing up, I watched all the Warner Brothers cartoons, of which generally the dangerous things in the Three Stooges shows, and some movies like Dirty Harry, and I haven't committed a violent act probably since I was 15 years old in a schoolyard scuffle. I know the difference between reality and fantasy, and I think most other people do too. Okay, sure, if I see 100 horror movies, then it's going to take a seriously intense movie to gross me out, but it has nothing to do with how I react in real life. NG. Acknowledging the fact that there may be a link between what you see and what you do you think the risk for video game players is higher because gamers are controlling what happens instead of just watching it? LM. There's no difference. JW. The only difference is that you'll probably be less stressed coming off a really good game. TZ. I think interactivity heightens the positive effects because you now understand that there is a causal relationship between doing something and something happening. JW. In response. Absolutely, that's an excellent point. GA. It would have to be a whole lot more realistic, say, a totally immersive VR setup. But then I think there could be profound implications of interacting with fictional horror. I gotta apologize to Next Generation. I guess they did like a 5-way phone call type of thing. That's what happened. So yeah, I guess they had them all on the same call. NG. Okay, end of subject. There's no proof either way. But ratings are a good thing, right? TZ. Yes, absolutely. I hate censorship and I would strongly defend people's rights to produce whatever they wanted, but we do need something to help parents decide what their kids should or shouldn't have. JW. Absolutely. I'm a consumer, and so anything that gives me more information on which to base a purchase decision is a good thing. LM. No, in as much as I don't think the people involved in the congressional intervention really understand. To listen to those guys talk, you'd think that they don't even have a handle on what, say, the different home systems are. GA. No, I have no objection to ratings as long as they aren't used to stifle creativity. We're going to voluntarily put a warning sticker on Harvester. But if ever a company denies funding for a game's development because it thinks an unfavorable ratings bracket could harm sales, then I think that's a passive form of censorship, which I'd object very strenuously to. There's a little sidebar on both sides about ratings, the case for the opposition. Seemingly everyone agrees that ratings are a good thing. There are, however, those who believe that ratings are not only bad for the video game business, but morally unjust. The arguments go something like this. Argument 1. Classifying games in the way the IDSA has into different recommended age groups is as good as an admission to parents that some games are dangerous, addictive, and not yet fit for children to play. Yet there is no proof of this, and this suggestion has never been conceded by any member of the video game community. At least the SPA system explains what is in each title, letting the consumers decide for who the game is suitable for. At the same time, the IDSA system of classification is deeply unattractive to children who feel as though the danger, the edge, and the excitement has been taken off the games they play. Those who believe that games won't be tweaked for rating panel approval are simply being naive. The ratings simultaneously add to the worries of parents. There must be some truth in it, while sanitizing the games for the players themselves. If it's fit for a 12-year-old, well, I'm 14 and I don't want anything to do with it. Argument 2. Classification is morally wrong. Yes, morally wrong. Censorship should be restricted as far as possible, imposed only as a last resort and in circumstances where there is overwhelming support for it. To impose it where these factors do not apply is morally wrong and an infringement of First Amendment rights. Argument 3. If Senator Lieberman's et al. Original idea was to reduce the number of violent video games, then the opposite may have been achieved. That adult classification exists, the genre has been legitimized. Nintendo, for example, originally argued against the rating system because it, legitimately, pointed out that its own code of production prohibited most violent score anyway. Ratings simply weren't necessary. Now, however, the existence of a ratings category for violent games relieves Nintendo of solely carrying the moral burden and enables the release of fully blooded up Mortal Kombat 2. Of course, these arguments are largely academic. The ratings are here, so let's start living with them. And of course, with the threat of governmental legislation, the games industry had no choice but to act. So, before we get back to the interview, just I wanted to give my 2 cents about the situation. So, in my personal life, I'm a very mild-mannered man. I'm a college professor. Some of it probably also comes from the fact that I believe I am autistic. But, I abhor real-life violence. It really shocks me and upsets me. And yet, I just love violent video games. They're fun, right? It's fun. It's a sort of a form of catharsis, right? You just get to rip the head off of a gross monster, and you're just like, that's funny. Growing up, I was lucky in that my parents didn't really care too much about which games I wanted or I bought. I remember the one exception, funnily enough, was Jet Force Gemini. Jet Force Gemini, which I believe it was rated T for teen. I guess at the time it came out, I was a fucking teenager back then, but I remember that I wanted to buy the game because it was a rare game for the Nintendo 64, and I was a big Nintendo 64 kid. And my mom called the game shop, and I think the fucking clerk was like, "Ooh, yeah, no, it's not appropriate for your child," who again at the time was 12. So I am a teenager. There was a teen rating on the game. I don't know why the clerk couldn't mind his own business. So my mom refused to buy me Jet Force Gemini. 3 years down the line, I bought Grand Theft Auto Vice City, played through the entirety of it. She didn't really care and didn't really worry. And in fact, some people in my sister's class, which were preteens at the time, also bought Grand Theft Auto Vice City and played through the entirety of it. Which, tells you something about maybe those parents should have paid a little bit more attention. But also, we are babying people too much these days. Like, we grew up on violent movies and violent video games, and turned out, for the most part, well-adjusted adults. This thing of trying to baby kids into explaining everything to them and um, making sure that everything fits a specific age rating or whatever. I think it's stifling their own personal growth because there's something about just reading or playing or watching something that might be pushing a little bit for your age, right? There's a little bit of forbidden fruit aspect to it. It's like, ooh, should I be watching this? And this also comes with the early pre-puberty discovery of your own body and sexuality and all that stuff. And yeah, I think we should just trust the fucking process more. Like, kids will be exposed to things that are more mature than they are, and they will be confused by it. But that confusion is the first step into a growth process, and that's the point. And maybe this is a soapbox that I recently got on with my nephews because we tried showing them the Princess Bride, and my wife's family kept trying to kept talking over the movie, first of all, which is something that really pisses me off, and kept anticipating the plot twists. Like how the Dread Pirate Roberts is really Wesley, right? Wesley Sisley. And so it's just like, no, just let the movie speak for itself. Yes, they will be confused, but they will eventually come out the other side. Anyways, that is my perspective on violent video games and ratings, and that at the end of the day, just let kids play what they want to play and watch what they want to watch. Maybe check in with them every once in a while, but hey, if they're 10 and they want to watch the Terminator, let them fucking watch Terminator. And then maybe if they regret it, then that's the lesson that they've learned, right? Alright, let's get back to the interview. NG. Due to the huge popularity of Doom, the unprecedented excitement surrounding Night Trap, and the phenomenal success of Mortal Kombat suggested there's a huge market for violent video games that we've just scraped the surface of. TZ. Fundamentally, in order to have a good video game, you have to have tremendous replay value. The novelty of Valiance will wear off. Besides, these things take a lot of money to make, and so you've got to be sure it's going to appeal to a wide enough audience. I don't think enough people would find extremes palatable. JW. There's a huge market for excellent games. All we have seen here is a series of great games that happen to include violence. Of course, there will always be people who exploit violence for violence sake, and these games will probably be bad. The fact remains that Mario has still sold more games than anyone can actually count, and there's no violence in those games at all. Unless you hate mushrooms, of course. LM. No, because the appeal isn't international. And also, video game trends go in cycles. A couple of years back, driving games were the hot thing, and then shooting games took over. 2 years' time, I think the popularity of fighting games will have gone away. GA. Number of games calling themselves horror games will grow, sure. But frankly, most games companies don't have the balls to do a real horror game, and wouldn't recognize one if it bit them on the butt. This Harvester dude is very full of himself. Like, every response that he gives, like, the Doom guy is kind of like, I mean, I don't really fucking want to be here, but whatever. The Harvester guy is like, oh, I am an artiste. I understand how violence can be used to incite catharsis in my players. Everybody else doesn't understand what horror is. NG. Let's be more ambitious. Video gaming has yet to hit a truly mass market other than children. It still needs that killer app to get adults playing. And as pornographic videos fueled the sales of VCRs in the early 80s, because people at home could experiment with sex voyeuristically for the first time, could this new genre of violent horror games prompt a large growth in video gaming as people are able to partake in make-believe violence for the first time? TZ. Sure, the argument can be made that Jane Fonda and pornography were the major motivations behind VCRs, and that may or may not be true, but you can't say that Jane Fonda and pornography fueled the movie industry. It was very strong before VCR were even thought of. I think the games business is the same way. Violent and pornographic products are already being developed, and that this will likely continue. GA. I see that, and that's a very good parallel and could very well be true. But let's be careful to make the distinction between horror and violence. Horror is based on horrible things, topics that are shunned by polite society, and I really don't think that mainstream publishers have got the stomach or the balls to carry it off. But violence might well be a visceral enough thing to drive the industry to higher and higher heights because it sells. It's an odd thing in America, what is and what isn't acceptable to society. Violence has always been very acceptable. You can shoot someone to death on TV, but you can show them making love. So yes, I think violence will result in greater and greater sales as time goes on, unless of course the government stifles it in some way. Well, a sidebar here, violence doesn't always sell. Oklahoma-based Razorsoft achieved a modicum of infamy in 1991 with titles such as Technocop and Stormlord. Very basic Genesis games, these titles came with colorful warnings about the nature of the graphics, gory violence, and naked nymphs, although the nymphs had been equipped with bras by the time the game hit the street, that spectacularly failed to ignite the public's interest. For some reason, a small blue spinning character was hedgehogging all the limelight. NG. Now we're all aware of some physical effects as a result of playing video games. The quickened pulse, heightened adrenaline levels, etc. Do you know of any medical research into this phenomenon? We're gonna leave the sidebars for later here. It's easy. It's just excitement. JW. No, I've not heard of anything. GA. They have shown that kids tend to be more aggressive immediately after playing violent video games, but hey, they're kids, and all the game has done is hype them up with the energy, which doesn't necessarily translate to ill will. There's been no proof that there's lasting effects, and the kids are naturally roughhousing violent little animals anyway. Jeez, that's a take. Do you think research into this is necessary? JW. Yeah, I'd love to see it. GA. Research on adults would be interesting, but it's very difficult to effectively test adults because, unlike kids, they have a good idea of what the tests are all about and naturally tend to hide their emotions. NG. Is it reasonable to assume that as games become more realistic in the future, the supposed physical effects will be heightened? TZ. All I know is that anything I can do to take TV out of the mode of being passive and into the mode of being active is worth doing. I am much more concerned about the passivity that gets induced by television than the risk of interacting with video games. JW. It's hard to say. Right now when I play Doom, I get an adrenaline rush. I get pumped, I get excited, and it's difficult to see how I could get more into a game than this. At this point, I think I'm at the height. LM. I agree it's unrealistic. GA. If the game was as convincing as real life, then yes, of course it would have an effect, unquestionably. NG. What are the chances of this trend eventually resulting in damaging psychological or physiological effects upon the player? Be it fainting, physical shock, or even post-traumatic stress disorder. TZ. Sure, there'll be a sword fight. You'll get your head chopped off, look down and see it looking at you with a smile on its face. It's going to be so ridiculous when you're going to laugh. It would be just like Monty Python's The Holy Grail. GA. I disagree. If the brain believes it's dead, then who knows what mental damage could be done. NG. There's a lawsuit waiting to happen here. So what's the legal position regarding the game publisher's responsibility in this scenario? Are you insured against this? JW. I go back to the Judas Priest case in which it was claimed that 2 people committed suicide after playing a song backwards. This was thrown out of court. NG. In the quest for ultimate realism and excitement, how far is too far? JW. Nothing is too far, just whatever it takes to make a perfect game. GA. I agree. NG. Given that the elements of the retail trade have already begun to balk at stocking adult titles, to what extent is the progress of the violent genre regulated by what shops will or won't sell it? GW. I think a good game is a good game and will be expected by all channel. No. Accepted by all channel. Is that a typo? Accept. To accept. But it's not the verb yet. To take or leave out from outnumber. Okay. So let me read that again. I think a good game is a good game and will be accepted by all channels. I think this is a miscopying of the interview. This should be accepted by all channels. Shareware and retail alike. Some obscure game in which the object is to do something really horrible might have to go underground. GA. There's very real danger that any game exploring the fringe wouldn't be allowed in these stores and could be denied funding in the first place. NG. Could we be looking at a breakaway underground sub-industry for the more adventurous titles? JW. I think one will pop up, but then we have one already for pornography. GA. For sure, but it could only exist if it was still possible to make a living doing it. And so I urge everyone out there to pay up for their shareware games because without the support of the buying public, the system just can't operate. And it could be the future for games if the government continues to become more oppressive or the business community becomes faint of heart and these titles are pulled from the stores. NG. Will you be developing further horror titles? TZ. Oh, we'll do another horror show for sure. JW. In the future, we'll keep the same taste to Doom for sure, but our main goal is to increase the scope of multiplayer options. GA. Oh, absolutely. If I find that in the future I have anything more to say, I love the genre. LM. Yes, sure. As long as they're fun, fighting games are still hot, we still enjoy making them, and the kids still love playing them. NG. Tom, J, Leif, Gilbert, thank you. Yeah, I think this was a bit of a fluff interview. You know, for a fluff topic, right? Violence in video games is such a mid-90s thing that it makes sense why they try to talk to actual developers about it. And all developers are just like, yeah, I mean, you know, we're just making games and it's really not a big deal. And I kind of agree with them. Alright, we've reached the preview section. We're really only gonna skim through the preview and the review section a little bit. I don't plan on reading too much into depth. So for example, Mortoon Grand Prix, we're gonna go ahead and skip because I don't really see why this is. Did this actually even come out? It did. Only in Japan though. They never actually brought it to the US. So. Oh, holy shit. The game and its sequel were developed by Kazunori Yamauchi, and this is what gave Yamauchi the money to found Polyphony Digital and start working on Gran Turismo. That's funny. Virtua Fighter, yeah, whatever. It looks. You look at it today and you're like, oh my god, this looks ridiculous. Namco. Namco's console software development has traditionally slipstreamed its arcade technology. Now the company's support for the Sony PlayStation looks set to reverse the situation. Namco is destined to be a prolific source of software for Sony's PlayStation. A deal signed with Sony allows the coin-op specialists to produce product for the home machine as well as to develop arcade machines using the PlayStation technology. With Sony's machine now entering its home stretch, Next Generation visited Namco's HQ in Yaguchi, Otaku, 20 minutes from downtown Tokyo, for a meeting with the R&D lab responsible for Ridge Racer and other PlayStation titles, and spent several hours quizzing 5 key staff, including the ever-helpful Yoichi Haraguchi and Nobi Kasahara. When Next Generation was last at Namco, the conversion of Ridge Racer was still deep in the planning stages. 6 months later, there are just a few weeks to go before the game is scheduled to be finished. We've spent 80% of the necessary development time, reveals Shigeru Yokohama, general manager of the CG development team. The project manager keeps telling us it's not enough, he adds, laughing. 6 months to convert a sophisticated arcade game to a brand new system using embryonic development hardware is a formidable task. Namco has a core team of 7 programmers and graphic artists working on Ridge Racer, but is also relying on a number of planning staff to complete the project. It's difficult to estimate just how complete the game is in percentage terms, says Shigeru. All aspects of the gameplay have been done and the graphics are now 70% complete. There are still small details to go in, like the girls at the beginning of the race. They've still to be designed. but most things are finished. Although characteristically wary of giving away too much technical information about the conversion process and the PlayStation's ability to replicate the coin-op, the Ridge Racer team was prepared to reveal some general details about the problems they encountered. The specification of the two systems are entirely different, states Shigeru. System 22 is used in the arcade version, and the PlayStation gives us less power to play with. The number of polygons on screen caused us some problems, as did the PlayStation CPU. There's also no anti-aliasing in the home version. We spent a lot of time refining the program on the PlayStation. As a result, it has ended up a lot bigger than the program code in the coin-op. Judging from the pictures on these pages, the programmers, who, unlike Sega's Daytona team, are not part of the arcade division, are experiencing some difficulties achieving the arcade's version level of detail. The preliminary results are extremely impressive considering that they represent 6 months' work. And what really matters is that the game looks fantastic in motion. Just as Next Generation was going to press, it came into possession of a videotape showing the game moving and can testify that these screenshots fail to do justice to the quality of the high-speed action. PlayStation Ridge Racer will include extra features not found in the coin-op. One improvement will be the addition of 2 different viewpoints, giving the player a total choice of 3. This will no doubt be welcomed by virtual racing devotees. A section of 12 cars will be incorporated. All the standard article options will be retained, including automatic transmission, the time trial route, and the ability to travel the opposite way around the circuit. The soundtracks in the game have been ported straight over onto the PlayStation sound hardware, and Namco is currently designing a steering accessory for the console to mimic the arcade experience as faithfully as possible. Rumor has it that this translates to a joypad that held in both hands with a twisting central hinge. Steering is achieved by twisting your grip as if you were wringing out a towel. That is the Gen Con? No. Namco driving controller. What was it called? NegCon. That's what it was. It's a weird ass controller. The fact that you could let me briefly share the page with you so you can see it, because this is one of those like lost controllers that is kind of worth seeing, if very briefly. There you go. There's the NegCon. Yeah, and you can see it's swiveled, right? And so you could use that to steer. I've never controlled one. It looks absolutely terrible, and I don't know why anyone would use it, but apparently people really liked it. Because it was very responsive somehow. I don't know. But anyways, that was that. Going back to the article. One issue which has been discussed at length with Namco is PlayStation's link-up capacity. It has now been confirmed that a link-up facility won't make it into Ridge Racer. According to Mr. Yokohama, Sony is a little bit behind on this particular aspect of development. We haven't seen the machine's link-up capabilities working yet, and we have no information about it. For this version of Ridge Racer, it won't be possible to play linked up. This is a shame, but it's one deficiency that Namco will surely address with a new release of the game, and is likely to remedy a conversion of Ridge Racer 2. Namco is still committed to releasing Ridge Racer to coincide with the arrival of the PlayStation. The exact launch date is still not confirmed, Section Chief Nobi Kasahara points out, so it's hard to say when the game will be released. Presumably, there won't be too much sleep lost by the team in the unlikely event of the launch slipping to past December. News that Namco will be pricing Ridge Racer at around 6,000 yen is very encouraging, given that the current wave of Super Famicom software is hovering just under the 10,000 yen mark. Consumer sales manager Yauchi Haraguchi explains that this is a direct result of Sony's lower licensing and manufacturing fee. With Nintendo, the higher memory ROM boards cost between 2,500 yen and 3,000 yen. with Sony the cost of a single game CD is closer to 1,000 yen, so we can take the same markup on each unit but sell the game at a much lower price. No other versions of Ridge Racer are planned by Namco, although it's known that the company has a contract with Sega for Saturn development. 3DS software was on the cards but now looks dubious. We know the PlayStation well now and it's good hardware, explains Shigeru, but we don't know the exact specifications of the Saturn yet, so it's difficult to say whether or not the game can be translated. Other new machines like the 3DO and 32X simply aren't powerful enough to do justice to the game. To the inevitable chagrin of the million of loyal Japanese Super Famicom owners, the chance of a 16-bit version appearing are at about 0. I mean, it's a fully 3D game, right? I guess the Super FX chip for the Super Nintendo was doing 3D, but not... It was, if you look at Star Fox, it's not doing 3D at a rate that you could actually play a racing game on it. So it's like, no. Another major project currently being worked on at Namco is Tekken. The game will probably be renamed Rave War for its US release. I am so glad they kept the name Tekken. Running on the new System 11 board co-developed by Namco and SEE System, this beat-em-up is one of the most significant developments in Namco. System 11 is essentially a PlayStation chipset optimized for the arcade. It's not exactly the same hardware as the home system, admits Shigeru, but it's based on the same system rather than the Saturn board is based on the Saturn. Because the game has been written on the PlayStation, no conversion will be necessary. It can be ported straight over. It's thought that one of the original AM2 designers of Virtua Fighter is playing a major role in Tekken, following Namco's recent acquisition of designers from Sega. With texture map polygon fighters that love Virtua Fighter 2 and exceptionally fluid movement, Tekken wowed the crowds at the recent JAMA show. Although Namco officials did its best to deter photographers, Tekken is expected to appear sometime next year. CyberSled, another PlayStation conversion in the works in Namco, is just 1 month behind Ridge Racer. It and Starblade are scheduled for release in December and January respectively. We'd like to be able to release one game a month for the system, states Yauchi. As for Ridge Racer, hopes on Namco remain high. We're hoping to sell one copy of Ridge Racer for every PlayStation sold, Mr. Haraguchi discloses. Well, if it's all possible. I bet they probably did. It was probably one of the big launch games. I guess they did say that this was all overall Namco, but it's really mostly just a feature on Ridge Racer. But still, interesting. Here on the left, you can see the ad for the Ultima games on Super Nintendo and Game Boy, which I don't think are good. I suspect they're probably not good versions of those games. Also, the title Repel the Demon Horde. If you know about the gargoyles and you know the plot of Ultima the False Prophet, well, maybe this is not the way that it looks. Tama for Saturn. Tama is the game that completes the Saturn launch lineup. Next generation witnesses what could be a resurrection of a classic genre. Tama is the Japanese word for ball, and in a sense developers Tengen have come full circle with their forthcoming Sega Saturn game, said to be one of the first third-party releases for the machine. Tengen was established to publish home computer conversions of Atari games coin-ops, and it was Atari who first proved that there was gameplay with balls with its innovative arcade machine, Marble Madness. Released in 1985, Marble Madness took on its foundation a realistic simulation of ball dynamics and added some colorful asymmetric graphics and a trackball to create one of video games' genuine originals. A trickle of copycat titles followed on the home computers of the day, notably Gyroscope, Spin Dizzy, and Bobby Bearing, but by the late 1980s the genre was all about dead. Only ASCIIware's Spin Dizzy Worlds and Taito's Camel Tree, but for the Super Famicom, showed that the roll-em-up still had some life in it. The gameplay in Tama reverses the concept of Marble Madness. Instead of controlling the ball, you control the course, which you can tilt, twist, and rotate in order to make the ball move in the required direction. The object is to steer the ball into a goal before time runs out. Each course or field in Tama features a maze consisting of walls, ramps, steps, plus one or more unusual obstacles and traps. There are no enemies, so the game is a simple race against time, but amazingly, the pared-down gameplay is accompanied by storyline. Bad balls, created by an evil machine, have taken control of Ball's world, and the good balls have to try and win it back. This is resoundingly bizarre by any standards, even those of the Japanese, whose taste in interactive entertainment storylines is often strange to our Western tastes, but it does allow an excuse for setting the fields in different locations, including forests, mountains, plains, glaciers, athletic tracks, and even a cemetery. As might be expected, each type of field has its own peculiar type of terrain, which affects the ball movement in different ways and gives the action some variety. Despite its impressive texture-mapped geometry, Tama is unlikely to feature highly in Sega software push for the Saturn come the US launch. As long as it delivers everything it promises, the Japanese penchant for puzzle-oriented arcade games should secure it a niche in the Japanese market, but with Clockwork Knight, Virtua Fighter, and Daytona USA on the way, it's unlikely that Tama will be heaping up many US gamers' most wanted lists. I am curious if the developers of Tama... Oh god, no, not the Tamagotchi. Tama Tengen game. I was curious if this would, the idea of moving the course instead of the ball, that is what inspired the people behind Monkey Ball, but I don't see anything, at least on the Wikipedia page for Tama. Super Monkey Ball. I guess it's a slightly different concept, right? Because you can fall off in Monkey Ball a lot more. Yeah. Maybe Nagashi, who, by the way, went on to make all the Yakuza games, funny enough, was inspired by Tama when coming up with the concept, but there doesn't seem to be any direct connection. The dark side of the Force just got darker. Ad for Dark Forces, which we very much enjoyed playing through. Daytona USA, it's fine. I don't need to read about it. Clockwork Knight, I'm curious though about. With Saturn imminent, Sega is adding in the final touches to its Polygons platform game. Many people were appalled at the prospect that a certain blue hedgehog would be the first platform star to make an appearance on Sega Saturn. Sonic haters will be relieved that the honor has been bestowed instead upon an armor-clad clockwork doll by the name of Pepero Chow. The game in which it stars, appropriately titled Clockwork Knight, is now in an advanced state of development and was scheduled to appear on the Saturn at launch. Clockwork Knight is set inside a large American country house, which appears particularly huge to your character because it's only a few inches tall. The story revolves around a small doll called Chelsea, who is trapped inside the house cuckoo clock. Each night, when the clock strikes midnight, she sings a tearful song, and her haunting voice brings all the toys in the house to life. But one night during an electrical blackout, she disappears. So in true platform hero spirit, the valiant Pepero Chow goes in search of her. Featuring a mixture of bitmap backgrounds and texture geometry, Clockwork Knight looks absolutely dazzling. Sega has used the Saturn hardware to its full capacity to create some fantastic parallax effects, as well as generate some smooth polygon animation. Judging by what Sega has revealed of the game, the real thing rather than the SGI demo, a great deal of interaction is possible with the background in Clockwork Knight. Household objects can be knocked off shelves, clockwork trains can be commandeered, and tea towels can be used to slide across slippery surfaces. If it plays as well as it looks, Sega's Clockwork Hero could be the next Sonic. No wind-up. Toshinden is one of those games... Is this... Okay, is Toshinden Battle Arena Toshinden? Or are those separate games? Yes, no, it's Battle Arena Toshinden. This is one of those, like, I'm not big into fighting games at all. It's one of those games that I always hear about and I have no reference for. Toshinden, Tales of the Gods of Combat. What does Toshinden actually mean, in fact? Probably Battle of the Gods of Combat, looking at the kanji that is making up the... Oh god, I guess I would need my Japanese apps for it here. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can quickly understand what it means, but it might actually just be... That might be a literal translation of what the title says. Because Shin was the kanji for God. I recognize this much. So maybe Toshinden is Tales of the Gods of Combat. That's cool. 3D fighting games are becoming the new benchmark for console performance. Takara's Polygon Fest looks like a prime contender. Toshinden contains some of the smoothest polygons yet seen and provides further proof of the PlayStation's power. The hugely successful run of Virtua Fighter, in Japan at least, has galvanized fighting game specialist Takara into action with a PlayStation release that recently impressed Japanese journalists, joined by Next Generation, attending a special presentation at the HQ of Sony Computer Entertainment. Most noted for its conversions of SNK games to the SNES and Mega Drive, Takara has decided that it has the muscle to go it alone and release an unlicensed game. The resulting is one-on-one PlayStation fighting game, Toshinden. The title translates rather clumsily as Tales of the Gods of Combat. A hybrid of Virtua Fighter and Samurai Showdown, Toshinden contains some of the smoothest polygons yet seen and provides further proof of the PlayStation's power. Toshinden's greatest asset, a zooming camera that pans smoothly across the 8 different backgrounds, is complemented by a range of superb Goro-shaded characters, complete with detailed clothing and even different facial expressions and hairstyles. Takara's expertise with original ideas is untested, but Toshinden looks like a good starting point. And then on this side for Twin Sins Relentless Adventure. That terrible game. Oh god, I hated it so much. It was unplayable. Doom. Doom is good. Doom for the Jaguar? I don't know. Doom is good. I guess the mid-90s were really a big time for fighting games, huh? Like Street Fighter 2 had opened up Pandora's box and everybody was coming in with it because we have another one here. This is a Jaguar game, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip it. Oh, I will, however, read Gex because I did play through, I want to say the entirety of Gex. Let me quickly check my retro achievements. There was a retro achievements event. Search Gex. No, I did not beat it. I just got far enough on it on the PlayStation to just get a like achievement of the week type achievement. So I have some familiarity with Gex. For what it's worth, Gex 3 actually a pretty good platformer. 32-bit platformers are a rare breed. 32-bit platformers starring reptiles are even rarer. Next Generation samples a 3DO game that is definitely one of a kind. Crystal Dynamics has already gained a reputation as the 3DO's most loyal champions. Gex sees the company heading into uncharted territory with an effort to produce the first 3DO platform game. Crystal Dynamics has followed accepted video games wisdom by making Gex a central character and animal. Slightly less conventional is the fact that they've chosen as their eponymous hero a hyperactive gecko lizard with a twisted sense of humor and the voice of Dana Gould, host of an HBO comedy special. According to the plot, Gex has been sucked into the media dimension, a place dominated by kitsch culture, 50s B-movies, lunchtime game shows, etc. His object is to destroy all the television sets in his lurid limbo and then defeat archenemy Red Zul. All Gex's movements, consisting of over 450 frames of animation, were created on SGI gear using a process similar to that employed by Rare for Donkey Kong Country. What distinguishes Gex from most other platform characters, though, is that he doesn't suffer from gravitational limitation. His sucker feet enable him to shin up walls and cling to ceilings, which means he can circumvent obstacles that Sonic or Mario would find impassable. Gex has other lizard-like resources. When confronted by an enemy, he can use his thrashing tail as a weapon, or lash out with his darting tongue. Power-ups are also available. Blue bottles and dragonflies take the place of the more usual rings and coins, and allow Gex to fly or throw fireballs. 18 months after launch, 3DO is a representative from almost every video game genre, with the most obvious absence being a killer platform game. Although Gex, with an unorthodox main character and obscure cultural references, isn't exactly standard platform fare, it could prove to be the format's equivalent of Mario. Crystal Dynamics, very good software development house, very, very busy in the long run, mostly with the Tomb Raiders. No, I guess they did the PS2 Tomb Raiders. But yeah, don't sleep on Gex. Gex is a pretty fun game. Gex 3 is even better, but don't sleep on Gex. Virtua Fighter 2. See, now this looks like visually much better. I guess the difference is that this is the arcade version of Virtua Fighter 2, whereas this was the Saturn version. So, I mean, even the original arcade version of Virtua Fighter kind of looks like shit, but I'm sure that the Saturn port looks even worse. Right, and that was all the previews. Some interesting stuff. What this is really making me interested in is like the beginning of the PlayStation games, and maybe an idea for a new series is sort of propped into my mind. So I'll have to see, but I think that's something that might start popping up on the channel once Life of Timmy wraps up. Okay, here are the reviews. And again, the reason why we're not really playing any games reviewed by Next Generation is that, these are the reviews. There's like a paragraph. Yeah, that's fine. These are not interesting enough for me to be like, ooh, I want to play that game, kind of thing. I think they're reviewing all of the 3DO games at once or something. Alone in the Dark, 3 stars. Demolition Man, 2 stars. John Madden Football, 4 stars. Alien vs. Predator, 4 star. Let's read this one. One of Atari's first solid titles, Alien vs. Predator is a Doom-like first-person action game with an interesting twist. Players can choose to take on the role of the Predator, the Alien, or the Marine, all trapped in the same base. Your choice here is more than superficial. It determines not only how you will fight and where you can go, but what you're actually trying to do. The Predator is probably the easiest character with which to start, and comes in plenty of nasty weapons and the ability to turn invisible at will. Here you gain points by honorably killing, or you can just turn invisible and start swinging, the other inhabitants of the base. Your end goal is to collect the skull of the alien queen. Alien characters have the advantage of speed and numbers. Although unable to use weapons, you are able to increase your number of extra lives by placing eggs into the bodies of fallen enemies. When you die, you can continue by living the life through one of your newly hatched children. Your goal is to find your breed queen. Playing a human may sound like fun, but it's actually the most like watching the movie. As a human character, you lack the strength or speed of either of their different races. Instead, you must depend on high-tech weaponry and human craftiness to carve out a path. Your only real goal at first is to merely survive. On the downside, the game is plagued with ultra-slow load times that really shouldn't be present at cartridge release. Controls aren't as easy as they could be. Sidestep and weapon select buttons are difficult to get to in a heated fight. But neither of these quirks stop AVP from delivering some real good play. Definitely the best Jaguar title we've seen so far. Doom, 3 stars, sluggish control, and graphics kind of look terrible. I guess they were meant to be watched on a TV rather than a monitor. Right? That makes a difference. Wolfenstein 3D, 2 stars. Properly 1 fewer than Doom. Makes sense. Couple of games for the 32X. Little Devil for the CDI. 1 star. Appropriate. God, that game was not good. 7 Guest, 3 stars. Also appropriate. The 7 Guest is an interesting game for the time, but the gameplay aspect of it is very, very thin. Burn Cycle seems to be like an FMV movie. The action portion is as frustrating as playing Operation Wolf with a faulty controller. Either the CDI's joypad isn't designed for this piece of action, or Burn Cycle's code simply isn't up to the job. Ouch. Colonization, 4 stars. Doom 2, 3 stars? Basically, the game is nothing more than a collection of new maps for the first title. Now that the first-person interface has become the design of choice for the entire industry, it will need to find new innovations or it will quickly find it's playing catch-up in its own game niche. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree that it's just more maps for Doom 1. The levels are a lot more vertical and a lot more complex. Yeah, I think this is a very hurried take. British of Dr. Radiaki 3. Okay, here's the thing. Here's where the star system is losing me a little bit. Um, I need at least a 10-point scale because it is absolutely maddening to put Doom 2 at the same score as the Fortress of Dr. Radiaki, which we've recently played on our 60 Minutes This Way episode. Take Doom, add great new rendered graphics, sense of humor, and you've got the Fortress of Dr. Radiaki. Especially Agent Mac Banner, you must take on the mysterious and the eccentric Radiaki, a household appliance tycoon bent on world domination. Armed with only a baseball bat and a literal host of gear, including swords, flamethrowers, and grenade launchers, you'll face all of Radiaki's twisted experiments. Barely Cuban soldiers, ninjas, toaster-headed robots, suicidal samurai, and even alligator men. In spite of a quirky control system that makes it difficult to hit some targets and disorienting movement mechanics that take a while to get used to, the game's incredible graphics and tongue-in-cheek cut-film atmosphere are sure to appeal to fans of first-person shooters. The level design is garbage. Like, yeah. I have actually enjoyed reading 3D interviews on the more think pieces of Next Generation. Holy fucking shit are these bad fucking takes on the review side. Holy cow. Four stars for Relentless. I don't, yeah, no. 3 stars for Snatcher. For Sega CD, this is mildly groundbreaking. The approach is very Japanese, mixing mature character relationships. In what other game do you have to worry if your wife wants a divorce? With severed heads, stock of STDs, and throwing in a cute robot sidekick and other strained comic relief. The CD-based dialogue could have been supplied by better actors. There's no consistent way your character can pick up and handle objects, but as long as you don't mind the schizo handling of the material, it isn't all bad. Sonic and Knuckles. Basically, this is the same Sonic game that Sega sold for the last 3 years, just wrapped up better and with a prettier ribbon. In fact, taken at face value, it's nearly indistinguishable from Sonic 3, released only 8 months ago. However, the company's latest character, a red echidna with dreadlocks called Knuckles, has a certain hip appeal that Sonic is starting to lose. And even more importantly, this cartridge is the world's first to be backward compatible with older games in the Sonic series. The slot in the top a slot in the top accepts previous Sonic cards and enables you to play them starring Knuckles instead of young Sonic. Does this make Sonic 2 less tedious? Well, no, but it's an impressive technical feat, and it points to a feature where old games can be given a new lease on life with mission cards similar to the expansion discs that have been long available for PC titles. Then Next Generation is all for it. Oh. See that's part of, again, not a big Sonic fan, but that's something that I never quite understood about the Sonic franchise. 1, 2, 3, and then what does Knuckles do? Apparently, what Knuckles do is just become a side character for the old games. Huh. Which is wild, because I guess they're just replacing the code for Tails with the code for Knuckles, right? So as long as they make sure that the code for Knuckles fits the same amount of memory blocks as the code for Tails, um, I see why that would be doable. Huh? Interesting. Aping Mario, Donkey Kong Country. Rare Limited, the company behind Nintendo's first Ultra 64 titles, offers the first ever completely rendered 16-bit game, Donkey Kong Country. First, the obvious. Render characters are the superior color palette of the Super Nintendo, give DKC the best graphics ever seen on a console game. Surprisingly, Nintendo still could have done more. In many cases, the game skips a few shades and actually uses a little dithering to save memory space. The game is an excellent example of what the Super Nintendo can really do, but unfortunately sets a benchmark no one else is likely to meet. Who but Nintendo can afford its expensive 32 megabit carts? Even so, one can expect Nintendo to continue its big cart trend to periodically spark 16-bit sales long after the next generation of console hit late next year. After all the hype, DKC really is an amazing cart. However, the gameplay falls a hair short of a typical Nintendo blockbuster. Although it's no Mario or Zelda, the game plays well with plenty of hidden items and secret rooms to keep even the most dedicated players busy for some time to come. 4 stars. The Lion King. Version's Digicel animation technique is capable of producing brilliant graphics, but it's a gimmick that's been beaten to death by Aladdin copycats. To set itself apart from the pack once again, the company has worked its magic on gameplay. Each level holds unique elements like the split-second jumps in the Elephant Graveyard or riding the waterfall in the Hakuna Matata stage. Control is also excellent, even though the game is much harder than Aladdin. It's never unfair or frustrating. Whoever wrote this paragraph cut it after this level. Absolutely. Like, young children will simply love it. Fucking PTSD, man. Oh. Oh, Mortal Kombat 2. This is the Super Nintendo version, I think, right? Yeah, we're in the Super Nintendo reviews. The once child-safe Nintendo actually called up Acclaim to ensure an equally bloody version of Mortal Kombat 2. As a result, this is the first Nintendo game to ever carry a content rating on its box. This SNES version is unquestionably better than the Genesis cart in every way. The graphics are richer, the sound is deeper, and the control is smoother. Almost every secret trick has been ported over as well, with at least 10 more codes added just for this version. With full creative license, Acclaim has produced possibly the best arcade conversion ever. I feel like that's not how people look at those sports these days. Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, no, okay, I guess I'm thinking of the first game. Okay. We should check that. Are they also reviewing? No, they're not reviewing the Genesis version. Um, only 5-star review, I think, this particular issue. Cruising USA, another 5-star. After the confined loops of Daytona USA and Ridge Racer, Midway Nintendo head back to the open road in Cruising USA for coast-to-coast racing. Two things to remember. One, this game is New World, folks. Home perfect. Supposedly, and there is some doubt, based on Ultra 64 hardware, this is exactly the same game you'll play at home in Fall 95. Sony and Sega only promise watered-down versions of their flagship racers. Two, with 14 varied stages, 8 cars, including the school bus and squad car if you know to cheat, and multiple start points, Cruisin' offers real long-time play outside the arcades. While less graphically impressive than its rivals, Cruisin' USA is the odd-run sequel Sega should have done, and is our peak for the driving crown. Ridge Racer 2, 4 stars, Virtual Cop 3 stars. Killer Instinct in the arcade, 4 stars. Yeah. Again, the reason why we're not doing 60 minutes this way is that A, there's way too many titles, and B, they do not go enough in depth in any of them for me to really get a sense of which games are worth or not worth playing. So, um, I'm planning at this point to continue reading these next generation issues in our timeline. Whenever we do, we're just not going to do a 60 minutes this way for these particular issues. Letters. We talk a lot of interaction. Here's where we deliver. Catch-22 ensures that all premiere issues are accompanied by disappointingly skinny mailback. No one is able to write until the mailing address has been printed, and then it's too late. We look forward to your contributions next month. In the meanwhile, here's some of the correspondence we've had over the last couple of months. This is just CEOs writing. It's kind of weird. Great news, I love reading Edge, and I'm sure Next Generation will be even more interesting. We've been saying welcome to the next level for a while, and I hope Next Generation will be just that. Tom Kalinske, Sega of America CEO. Thanks, Tom. Bit of exploration is required here. Edge is a sister publication of Next Generation. Launched in the UK over just a year ago, Edge has achieved spectacular success on the other side of the Atlantic, even winning the European Leisure Software Publisher Association's Magazine of the Year award for 1993. Next Generation will cooperate with Edge in sharing information. So with Edge providing us with European news, our own dedicated news hounds based in Tokyo and our own HQ located in California's Silicon Valley, Next Generation can provide you with a truly global perspective. The launch of Next Generation is great news. Everyone here at Capcom fights over the few copies of Edge that we get. Next Generation is sure to be a winner. Joe Morisi, Capcom Vice President Marketing. On behalf of Philips Media Games, I'd like to welcome Next Generation to the United States. Edge, your sister publication in the UK, is known for its high-quality design, thought-provoking features, and previews and reviews of the best game industry has to offer. I'm sure that the Next Generation staff is well on its way to creating a magazine for American gamers that lives up to Edge's reputation. We at Philips Media Games are looking forward to sharing our games with your staff, and most importantly, of course, with your readers. Welcome again, and happy gaming. And there's more from the product manager for Sega of America, director of marketing for 3DO Company, director of marketing for Nintendo of America, Brian Fargo, CEO of Interplay, Div Perry and the Earthworm Jim team. Here, if your question were received on an impromptu Next Generation working visit to our local arcade. How much will Next Generation concentrate on what's happening in the countries outside of the United States? Chris Salas, Cupertino, California. Our main focus is always on the games and systems available to gamers in the US. However, there are times when Europe and Japan lead the way, the launch of Saturn and PlayStation, for example, and in these cases we will print news from abroad, as it paints an accurate picture of what will soon be happening back home. Will next generation print game strategy guides? John Summer, San Jose, California. No, next generation is all about news. News of new games, new systems, new debates raging in the game development community, and new stories. We don't do tips. These are some hiring things and ads, including this ads for Put Worlds in the Math of the Dead. This is for an original interactive fiction by Clive Barker, made by Virgin. I wonder if this is Clive Barker's Undying. No, this was published in 2001. Clive Barker video game work. Where do I find the video game work? Video games. No, I thought there would be a video game, but if it is Undying, it wouldn't come out for another 6 years, so that must not be it. Next month, Joyriding, gaming on the information superhighway. Internet gaming is possibly the fastest growing sector of interactive entertainment. Next month, Next Generation logs on for the definitive guide to what many industry pundits believe will be the future of gaming. Also, Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario and Donkey Kong Country, talks exclusively with Next Generation in Japan. Saturn launches. Live from Tokyo, Next Generation covers the hype, the hardware, and the game surrounding Sega's most ambitious project yet. Next Generation 2 on sale January 24th, 1995. What are calling the X-Wing a Star Wars trilogy? That's funny. Donkey Kong Country, you won't believe it either. Alright. And that wraps up this issue of Next Generation magazine. It was a pleasant read overall. I like their perspective. I was impressed with the interview to Trip Hawkins because they were not shying away from like hard questions. The Valence Tapes piece was a bit more fluff, but yeah, it's an interesting thing where it's really just about big picture stuff and the latest news, right? The ratings and the previews are not as big of a deal. So I think it complements well with things like GamePro, which instead are literally all about the game. It's all about the previews and the reviews and the tips and all of that. So yeah, I think this was a pretty good experiment, and I'm looking forward to continuing reading the series in the near future. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this episode of Required Reading. Other things happening on the channel this week: the conclusion of Shadow Man will air. I love the game to death. I'm so happy that I got to play it for the channel and got the Retro Achievements Mastery on it. It was such a fun time. I can't wait for them to actually release the achievements for like the Dreamcast version or the PlayStation version and go through the whole thing again. Because boy, I really love that game so much. Medal of Honor Underground, also a very pleasant surprise. Glad that I managed to play through it. We finished the main game, but did not end up beating the secret level just because it was a little too hard. But it was a really good time playing through the whole thing. So the conclusion to that will be posted in 2 weeks. We will have the Life of Timmy continues happening. We are 3 episodes away from the finale, which is episode 31. So make sure to keep checking it out, liking, leaving a comment, giving it some extra love. And last but not least, Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition playthrough and is continuing, and Soul Reaver is gonna wrap up next week. That one I was not particularly fond of at the end of the day. We'll eventually go over and play through Soul Reaver 2 on the PlayStation 2. I hope that one will be better, because I did not really like Soul Reaver 1. That's what's happening on the channel. Thank you so much for watching this episode. It's been a pleasure recording it for you. This is Nick, signing off, reminding everyone to let's keep retro playing together.